Señoras and señores, look who is joining us here on the Carne Asada. This is why you have to watch the show because you never know who's going to show up. Joining us, the host of Unfiltered with Casey Stern and a Mets fan, Casey Stern. Casey, thanks for coming on the show.
At least you started out with the good part before you said I was a Mets fan. By the way, I'll also add into my bio, I used to hand out a lot of carne asada as out by your way as a waiter for a couple of years at Marrick's Tex-Mex. Out there on PCH. So if that still exists, hi to all four people who remember me with chicken fajitas. So hi everyone. Good to be here.
We're definitely going to get into that, and I just want to let people know that Casey will only play basketball in the 7 feet and under league.
Yes.
So for all you. For all you 6 feet and under guys, Casey is above your level. Okay.
Yeah. I only play hoops by myself. Well, that's why Alysha, I only play by myself because when you miss shots, then you get to like grab a back or a hamstring when you're in your 40s and like look and see if the neighbor's noticing you because that's the only reason you miss. You don't have to worry about guarding.
Do you pad your stats? Is that what it is? You're a rebound guy? Is that what you're going?
I always make sure that the one shot I make is the last one I take, and then I just drop the mic, walk off stage. Yeah.
All right, Casey. I because the Mets are the Metropolitans, we have to get into it. So, first of all, what made you a Metropolitan fan, and how long have you been a Metropolitan fan?
Idiocy and literally clear idiocy since I'm 5, probably. So my whole family are Yankee fans, except for me.
Okay.
I was named after Casey Stengel. To make a long story short, my grandfather, who was sick at the time, they weren't sure what to name me. They handed me over to him, and I tried to jump out of his arms, and he said I was rambunctious like Casey Stengel, but not the Mets manager, like Joe Torre, the Mets manager, for example. We're talking about the Yankees. So as a kid, I think it was a combination of my parents, because I lived on Long Island, didn't want to drive and take the train all the way to the Bronx, so it was easier to get to. And I wanted to rebel and root for the underdog. And I really wish I can go back and channel back in time and change that decision because of the therapy it's cost me over the last 40 years.
Wow, you really do sound like a Mets fan. Yeah. So let me ask you this. Because you're from Long Island, it really is about geography, right? If you're from a certain part of town, you are going to be destined to be a Mets fan, right? Another part of town, you're destined to be a Yankees fan. That's how it works right there in New York, right?
Yes, and normally Mets fans, so it's like an Ets thing because normally Mets fans are Jets fans because they practice on Long Island even though they and the Giants are both in Jersey. I wasn't that dumb, luckily. So on the spectrum of dumb, I only fit in the Mets category. But I've never left them. I mean, look, it's one of these things where if you're a fan of a team like the Yankees, they win all the time. There's no joy in that because it's like being a coach of a great team. Like Phil Jackson, he didn't do anything right with the Bulls, right? Like you don't get coach of the year when you have a great Dave Roberts. I love Doc, right? You're not going to get credit. You're only going to get like a field goal kicker. We'll only talk to you when you make a mistake. Yankee fans are getting yelled at all the time because you buy everyone. As a Met fan, everyone sympathizes and makes fun of you. So there's nowhere to go but up. It actually makes it easier that way. And because group therapy is so important, I feel like being in a stadium, there's nothing like being like in the stalls of like a 7th inning of a Met game that they're going to collapse and listening to just what people are saying and how it's going to happen. But this year, maybe not this year.
All right. That leads me in. My producer and I have differing opinions on this, okay?
Okay.
So I'm very curious to hear your answer on this. I think the Metropolitans are for real. Okay, my producer Babyface isn't completely convinced, so I hear it from the source. Okay, the fan is the one who's going to tell me the truth. Are the Mets for real?
First of all, no fans will tell you. Let me tell you something. Many years ago, I covered the Red Sox, and I was there covering them daily in their 2004 run that they made. And I could tell you, being there when Johnny Damon hit the grand slam to make it 10-3, it was over. Like they're about to win the court for. I mean, it's goodbye, right? You're not allowed to speak. Like, don't talk. Like, you can't high five. So, but I think because of the Buck Showalter aspect of it, it's different. And there's a lot to that. I mean, I've covered the game 20 years, and there are a lot of overrated things about coaches and managers. But the biggest part that's not, and it's kind of not hard to understand, it's a long season. You want somebody who kind of gets you as an athlete, right? Leo Mazzoni said to me many years ago, biggest thing about coaching in the big leagues, know where to blow smoke and when to light fire, right? When you get coaches who scream all the time, wear out their welcome, right? When you get guys who don't get credibility, the player's thinking what you and I are thinking. Why are you the hitting coach who had 4 home runs in your career telling me, who just drove in 120, what to do? Buck Showalter, even though he hasn't won a World Series, has the street cred. And after the Mickey Callaway scenario and all the Mets disasters of the last number of years, I feel like he's kind of settled that. You know, we talk about the ownership, right? But Max Scherzer, right? Of course, the money's a huge reason, but Buck Showalter was mentioned often as a reason. And if you look at the way he's handled things, even with the injuries, Buck's got a weird sense of humor, kind of like plays it off, but he takes and buffers away from the players. So, and in New York and in LA, you know this, I mean, and more for the Lakers for me than the Dodgers living there, but you need some of that. You need some of that levity. So I really think that one of the reasons I believe that it's different is because Buck's brought a different aura than they've had in forever, really, in a long time.
Alysha, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's the key phrase for me is it's a long season. And I do love, you know, if I had to rank the New York teams, I mean, I feel like the Rangers are getting more love than anybody right now in New York, but the Mets have become the darlings. So congratulations.
You're welcome, man. Be careful because I'm an Islander fan, so I thought we were going to be friends. This is not going to go well. Go ahead.
But all I hear about is Rangers and the Mets have now become a thing, you know.
Yes.
There's an East Coast bias. I'm not going to argue with it.
There is, of course.
Right? Okay.
It's because of money. It's not and because of time, right? It's not. I mean,
the bedtime.
Reality.
The bedtime.
Yeah,
but still, I mean, it is kind of frustrating when the Dodgers are doing what they're doing with this magical season. Mookie Betts doing Mookie things. Freddie Freeman, again, just I could go on and on how stacked the Dodgers are. To get a blurb on nightly news or even morning sports news, it's like an afterthought. Mets haven't won anything yet, and I'm excited for you guys. I am, because I like Mets fans way more than I like Yankee fans.
It sounds like you tell me. It sounds like I'm being backhanded, complimented, and placated. I'm really bad with this stuff, but I'm just saying. It's like,
okay,
so
no,
I moved in the South. Let me just give you an idea, Alysha. So I'm from New York, so you can be straight with me. I moved in the South a few years ago, and it took me about 5 minutes to realize that bless it means you're an idiot, and I just don't want to say it to you. Go ahead.
Blessed heart. Yeah. Oh, bless your heart.
I mean, really, if they just tell me I'm an idiot, I can understand that, actually.
No.
Yeah.
This is actually probably me being the diehard, like very loyal Dodgers fans, and also working in an industry where you see the bias, and it's a little frustrating. So for the Mets to come along and all of a sudden it's like the second coming, and I'm like, and again, I'm excited for you. I'm going to put it on paper that I am a bigger fan of Mets fans than Yankees fans. I've been to games in all the stadiums. And what was it, that 7 train?
Yep.
I just went out
today.
That's
the one. Oh, yeah. That's the one.
I love that experience, seeing the Dodgers play there. And so, again, I'm not berating.
No, I don't think you are. I don't think you. Can I sell you on part of why that happens, though, right? It goes back to what did I say about like coaches? Like, no. Give you an example, right? And I'll use West Coast as an example. Okay. 2010, Bud Black was the coach of the year. The Padres were in first place for most of the season. Okay. They played the Giants 6 times in the last 2 weeks. The Giants win the division, and then they go knock off the Phillies and surprise them and win the World Series. The first of 3 that they won. But in the season, because the Padres weren't supposed to do anything, Bud Black got the credit. Everybody gets bored with what they're used to seeing. It's like waiting at Cinderella's castle for that stupid thing that happens at 9 o'clock at night. It's like, what am I doing here? Right at Disney all the time, right? Because you know it. I think you wait until the playoffs for the Dodgers nationally because look at the team you have. I mean, you should win the World Series. That's what sucks. Going back to what I was saying, that's being a Yankee fan. Like, I don't care from where I stand, but the one thing I will always apologize for them, Yankee fans have to apologize for themselves all the time. Like, they have to explain why it's okay they're fans because they spent all the money and they have all the players. I think that you're being treated like the Yankees. Is that fair? I mean,
absolutely.
Right? Are being punished for being as great.
You're being punished for being as great as you are.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
I can live with that.
See what we did there?
Well, here's the thing that scares me though about the Mets, and You tell me. You have Scherzer and DeGrom are down right now, but I feel that the Mets probably have the farm system where they can make a trade to get a starter down the line. The Dodgers are going to have to compete with the Mets to try to get pitching. And the way you guys are playing, I mean, you guys are running away with the division right now. Yeah. I mean, that's what scares me.
And that's the big, honestly, Juan, that's the biggest key, because when you got a 9 or whatever it is, 8.5, 9-game lead already, it allows you to coast until those two guys are healthy. End of the day, and I'm not to bring up a bad memory, but in covering it, 2 players, Juan Soto is amazing, and he had a couple of big home runs, but Scherzer and Strasburg knocked you out in a 5-game series and beat you in your yard, right, in game 5. Okay, one came out of the bullpen, one start, 2 pitchers. Okay, that's how it goes. 2 pitchers beat the Astros, Scherzer and Strasburg, right, winning those 4 games. If you're the Mets, that's the way you look at it. July 15, August 1, who cares? Whatever's long enough, right? But not too long to get those 2 guys ready. Because if I tell you we're in a series, do you care who's in my lineup, really? If I tell you it's DeGrom and Scherzer, because in a 5 games or a 7-game set, you're in a lot of trouble. I think for the Mets, we can't answer their questions. The Dodgers are a better team. They're more deep. They've got more options, right? And different things to work with. The Mets are going to come down to what you just said, because they've got a lineup that has some speed. They can hit for sure. Alonso, and I love Pete Alonso. He's tough not to like as a human, right?
Yeah.
But it's coming down to those 2 guys. If those 2 guys are healthy, the whole league better be careful, right? If they're not healthy, the Mets aren't going to win. I mean, I hate to say, for all the openers and all the BS we talk about with this sport, starting pitching in the postseason is still what it's about. It still comes down to what Urias did, right? And to have a guy like when he came out of the bullpen doing it for those 3 innings, the Walker Buehler starts, right? At the end of the day, it's still like it was when we were starting pitching. It's going to come down to those 2 guys and their health, for sure.
So are those injuries to DeGrom and Scherzer, are they concerning, or do you think there's enough time in the season for them to get over that?
I'm a Met fan. When they have a hangnail, I get concerned. Their cuticle is in trouble. I'm in trouble. Like when you're a Met fan, you literally, it's like in the movie Groundhog Day when he walks into the puddles and says it's a doozy. That's every day. Like when Max Scherzer got hurt, I was surprised it took so long. Like for what, you know what I mean? It's like, that's what it's like. I mean, unfortunately, but I think, you know, the other part of it is in the past, the Mets, everything's from top down, right? Like look at the Dodgers, right? When Stan came in that group and the amount of they had like 8 GMs like in the room, right?
Right.
And they get Doc. It's all top down with any company. Steve Cohen it's been a different scenario. They act differently. Like they don't do Met things. There's no sex toys. Mr. Met's not giving the finger. Like, you know, the manager doesn't come out and apologize 8 times because the first 7 were wrong on Twitter. Like it's a different scenario. So I'm trusting, right, that they will handle the injuries the right way. Because end of the day, you guys know this as well as I do. You could say like timetables. I only care about the timetable that doesn't have you coming back too soon, because that's when it's no good. So that's where the lead helps for sure.
Go ahead, Alysha.
I'm just the injury talk. You're making me nervous.
Well, I'm not trying to. You know, at least you're getting attention. I mean, the Dodgers, no one talks about them. Really, I feel terrible for you.
Well, again, my bias is not like I think they should be. But again, I come from a biased place.
That's okay.
So every morning I read up, you know, blah, 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 like all of us. And MLB has started their polling for for MVP players.
Okay.
And in the National League, Mookie Betts is number 1 with the most first place votes. No surprise there. Again, he had an exceptional May, and it's a long season. But your guy is in there, Pete Alonso. So I was going to ask you about him, but before you went on pitching, now I feel like, I don't know, like you should probably say some nice things about Pete Alonso while you have a chance, because all you care about is pitching.
Well, pitching is what wins. At the end of the day, hey, look, it's like you can't win in the NFL if you can't stop somebody from scoring eventually, right? Right. In the NBA, Mike D'Antoni is still going to get 8 more jobs while we're all alive, God bless, where he's going to try and prove you can only hit threes. Like it doesn't work that you got to pitch, regardless of your hitting. But the thing about Alonso that I love is that he's always had his power is ungodly. It's massive, right?
Super impressive.
But he's gotten better defensively. He's gotten better as a hitter, and he cares. I mean, we're talking about a guy who, you can't manufacture good character people. Mookie Betts, example, in a World Series, walked outside after a game 2 and fed homeless people who were outside Fenway Park. Wasn't looking for attention. Nobody even knew he got caught. That's a dude, right? That's a real guy. Pete Alonso, when he's crying on first base when he broke the record, and he's making for 9/11. He had asked before the season everyone's shoe size. This was 2 years ago. Nobody knew why. He had specially made shoes for 9/11 for everyone on the team. Like, he's like a good dude, so I root for him. But he's worked so hard to become a better player. And I think the biggest thing, last thing, is nobody can do it on their own. The Dodgers have had a lot of lineups where they haven't been able to trust more than now. You have depth all across the board, but I'll use the Padres. How many years of the Padres? It was like Adrian Gonzalez and like a bunch of other people. Paul Goldschmidt on Arizona. How many years? And then a bunch of other guys, right? Alonso's got Lindor playing better, right? Starling Marte has been a huge addition for them. McNeil is acting like the all-star player he was a couple of years ago. So I think it's like anything else. It's pressure. I know this being somebody who's hosted alone. I mean, and you have a co-host who showed up late, so we'll dock him, some pay. But, when you're sitting there by yourself, right? It's different. It's like anything else. I think the pressure's off a little bit for him. I think that's been the difference. I don't know. I am his shrink, so I will tell you that this is the case.
All right, we're going to need to wrap up pretty soon, but Casey, I can't let you go without asking you 2 things.
Okay. The lead up headphones, right?
I don't know. I don't know if you might be too young, but those 86 Mets, the late 80s Mets,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember them at all?
Oh, very well. Very well. Yeah.
Okay.
I was 9, 10, 11 during all that. Yeah.
Who was your favorite player on that team?
Lenny Dykstra, which doesn't sound as good now because he's had kind of a strange ride since then. But I love the way he played, and I love Doc and Strawberry and all of that. I used to, getting a chance to work with Steve Sachs and being friends with him over the years. I've messed with him about the fact that, to please, anytime anyone sees Oral, thank him for ruining the dynasty. Who knows what would have changed if we actually could have gotten a hit off him in that series in '88. For those who don't remember, the Mets beat the Dodgers, I think it was 11 out of 12 times during the regular
11
season
out of 12
in 1988.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
And it's like, are we serious? But I love those 80s teams because we all love to root for. It's like, in wrestling, the Stone Cold Steve Austin of like baseball teams was like the New York Mets. Who doesn't want to root for them? You see what I'm saying?
Was it a mistake for Strawberry to leave?
There was like a lot. Those guys could only be. There's like a Jim Brewer skit that he does, and I'll go quick, where he has like all the different drinks come in one by one into his stomach, and here comes tequila to ruin the party. Like, there were too many people in the party for like that Met team where it was going to go south, I think, either way. Yeah.
What was the over-under on cigarettes for Keith Hernandez during a game?
I don't know, but they're over under a lot for me during everything now.
All right, and last one. Mike Piazza, should he have gone into the Hall of Fame as a Dodger or as a Met?
A lot of them are easy, and they're given like the wrong way. This one is very tough because he did a lot for the Dodgers, and I know this seems weird, but I will say this. In all the sports moments I've ever been to as a fan or covering, 9/20/101 is the greatest sport event I've ever been to. I went as a fan when he hit the first home run after 9/11. I know it sounds kind of bizarre because it's one moment, but I think what that moment was in baseball kind of stamped that he was going to be in Met lore in that place. And I know it kind of seems weird, but it was such a, like, my hair just stood up, like what he represented during that time. I think that's why, but this is one of the ones where there actually are 2 stories. Some of them are like, really? Are you kidding me? Like, we know there aren't enough expos in there, but are you kidding?
Right.
Like, this is kind of even, but I do think that what he was during all of that after 9/11 was part of why. Yeah.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Casey Stern, host of Unfiltered, which you can find on the Believe podcast.
You tell I'm shy? Like, I think the name is fine, right? Like,
wait,
I feel
can
like
I just mention one thing?
You can mention anything you want. Sure. Yes. Go ahead.
1986, we were sitting in the outfield because they were the most affordable seats, and it was before it got really, really aggressive down there.
Yeah.
My dad brings balls. We're watching batting practice. Ron Darling is down there. He threw me a ball and he signed
Oh, it's
it.
awesome.
So
He's such a nice guy, by the
still
way,
have
too.
it.
Ronnie's great.
Yeah, but you know, when he is a commentator,
Yep.
when he's talking about the Dodgers, not so friendly. I'm just saying.
Oh, I mean, come on. Everyone's like that. Like, why aren't they talking about my team?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, like it doesn't like everyone's like I'm thinking just because everybody always on Joe Buck, but like whoever it is, it's like they hate my team. They don't hate your team. Like, it's not like that. But I think when you grow up listening to Vin Scully, anyone else is not going to be good enough.
Right.
Absolutely. Casey, we can't thank you enough for joining us. We got to do this again. There's so much more other stuff that I could get into with the Mets, but I know
no problem.
We're up against it. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Casey Stern. Casey, where can the people follow you, find you?
My address is you can find me at Casey Stern on Twitter, also a YouTube channel, which you can find through my Twitter, and Unfiltered, which will be out pretty much every week along through Believe, because, hey, it is fitting because the Mets used to say, you got to believe. They also used to have Catch the Fever, which is what you got when you came to the Mets in a trade, like Carlos Baerga, or signed like Roberto Alomar. I'm going to go back to therapy. I love you guys. It was fun. Anytime.
Thanks a lot, Casey.
Right,
appreciate it.
Good to have you. Thank you.